Now, the Trump administration threw a new guy out there yesterday, Stephen Miller, who's long been part of the campaign. He was the warm-up act for Trump at his rallies, and he's been a senior strategist all along in there. And it isn't going to be long before Trump's going to have to fire him because he's obviously smarter than Trump and is telling Trump what to think and what to say, just like Bannon and just like Priebus and just like Flynn. There are 4 people Trump's going to have to fire now, or that are already in trouble. Stephen Miller was on the 4 network programs yesterday, the Sunday shows, and kicked it. And the left today and the media is doing their best to destroy him. I have the sound bites of that coming up. All kinds of the ICE raids, the immigration raids. Here's Trump's executive order, which has been shut down, and yet ICE is showing up all over illegal immigrant America and deporting them. USA Today actually has a story, what to do if ICE knocks on your door and you're illegal. Don't answer it. Don't answer it and call an immigration lawyer. We'll be back here, folks. Okay, so the Trump White House trotted out not a spokesman, but one of their inside policy advisors to appear on the Sunday show, Stephen Miller, who is in his 30s. He's a wonderkind of sorts. He went to Duke. He's from Santa Monica, Santa Cruz. He's from a very leftist part of California, but is a rock-ribbed conservative. Trump found him working for Jeff Sessions. And he is a very articulate spokesman and unruffable. He's unruffleable. He's extremely solid. In fact, I looked at some of the comments on the ABC website after he appeared with Stephanopoulos. And Stephanopoulos was so classic yesterday, being disrespectful, subtly so, with pointed editorial comments about Miller. Well, you've provided no evidence, and you still, for the record, you have not provided any evidence. You want to claim that you can make it. Meanwhile, Susan Rice shows up to lie to Stephanopoulos and everybody about Benghazi on 5 shows, and they all lap it up like addicts. Not once did well, you haven't provided any evidence that the video actually was the reason for the killings in Benghazi. Not a single time. Our sound bites come from this week, but he showed up on all the programs. Let's get started here. First question that we have, do you think everyone being removed right now, meaning illegal immigrants, because these ICE raids, by the way, about these ICE raids, something you need to know. Drive-bys are obsessed today with what's being reported as Trump's huge immigration roundup. Never mind, these raids being executed were planned months ago under the Obama regime, folks. I'm not making it up. I never make it up. This is what's happening. Never mind that Obama himself ordered numerous raids. It didn't just net a couple hundred illegal aliens. Obama had raids that netted 7,500 illegals and deported them. But that was never, it was reported, but nobody ever had a problem with it when Obama did it. Nobody, the media, nobody thought it was inhumane. Nobody thought it was untoward. Nobody thought it was terrible. They barely even mentioned it. Now, Obama-era raids, just like that military operation in Yemen, that was planned during the Obama administration. So are these raids that you're reading about. So Stephanopoulos is asking Miller, do you think everyone being removed right now is a threat to national security?
I think, first of all, that it would be improper, unethical, and wrong for me in the White House to pick up the phone and call an ICE officer and say, well, we know you encounter someone who's here illegally, and we know they have a final order of removal, and we also know that they're a convicted felon, but we would like you to ignore all of those laws. What would you say, George, if I picked up the phone and called an FBI agent and said, I know you're investigating a tax evasion case, and I know the person you're investigating is a convicted felon, and I know they've absconded from justice, but I want you to pretend none of that happened, burn the file, go back to your desk, don't do anything. Would you think that would be an ethical and appropriate action for me to take?
Now, I love this. And by the way, Trump tweeted this morning his thanks to his own aide for defending him so well. I mean, you never see a president do that. Did Obama tweet his support and appreciation for Susan Rice? No. Obama wanted you to think he had nothing to do with what she said. But Trump's out there tweeting, thanks to Stephen Miller defended me so well, on lying fake news or whatever it was the tweet said. But here's Stephanopoulos. The point of Stephanopoulos' question is, okay, you guys are rounding up all these innocent, harmless illegals and you're just throwing them out of the country. You really think they're a threat to national security? And Miller answers it as a rule of law question. He says, well, first of all, it would be really improper, unethical, and wrong for the White House to pick up the phone and call an ICE officer and say, hey, if you find an illegal who violated the law, ignore it. We wouldn't do that. We're simply enforcing the law here, George. It might look strange to you because it hasn't been done in the last 8 years. But that's the point of Miller's bite here. We're just enforcing the law. He doesn't say these are Obama-era ordered raids, but they are. I'm not even sure Stephanopoulos knows that. And Miller tries to make the point. Look, George, if we know somebody's out there, like if you know a friend of yours is evading taxes and we've got all the evidence, do you think we should pick up the phone and call the IRS and tell them to forget it? And his point is, why should we forget and ignore people breaking the law, George? All we're doing, Trump said from the get-go, American laws are going to be enforced. He was a big law and order guy during the campaign, during his appearances and his rallies. And here's Stephanopoulos, one of the people that didn't listen, didn't pay any attention while Trump was campaigning. And now because his sensibilities are offended because these are minorities, these are people of color, and they're poor people, and they're illegal, and you're kicking them out. Yeah, threats to national security. No, it's not national security, George. We're enforcing the law. And, of course, Stephanopoulos had no answer for any of these retorts from Stephen Miller. He just, well, okay, well then, okay, well, okay, how about this? And then on to the next question. And as you will hear, Miller nukes the next question. Well, yeah, but I didn't hear for the record anything. You still didn't answer my question. Now, on to the next question. And it went on and on like that. And Miller, they didn't fluster him. And what they're really, really upset today is that Miller pointed out that there's voter fraud everywhere. And Stephanopoulos did what the drive-bys do. Give me the evidence. Give me the evidence. And Miller said, go to New Hampshire, George. I mean, everybody in New Hampshire politics would say they bust people in here and there. And so now New Hampshire's up in arms and the drive-bys are up in arms at Trump once again lying about non-existent voter fraud. Moving on back to Stephen Miller, ABC, George Stephanopoulos. Here was the next question. Mr. Miller, we've got this report at the Department of Homeland Security right now saying that the cost of the wall is likely to be above $20 billion. That's almost 3 times what the president said on the campaign trail. One, how much is the wall going to cost? The president says he's going to bring the cost down. And can you guarantee that Mexico will pay?
I'm so glad you brought this up. The media has done story after story after story about the cost of building a security wall on the southern border. I can't remember a time, George, and correct me if I'm wrong, that anyone in the media has ever done a story about the cost of amnesty, about the cost of not enforcing our laws, or the cost of illegal immigration. This is really quite remarkable. It's estimated that illegal immigration costs our country state, local, and federal benefits about $100 billion a year. Stopping new illegal immigration, preventing the effects that will have on our schools, on our hospitals, on our welfare system, on our wage earners, will save taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars. This wall will pay for itself many, many, many times over.
I guarantee you that Stephanopoulos has not had anybody answer his question this way. Stephanopoulos asks this question thinking, even before he's asked it, that he's got Miller trapped. And you know why he thinks that? Because he thinks he's going to be exposing Trump as a liar about the cost of the wall and about Mexico paying for the wall. And in this, Stephanopoulos is demonstrating that he, like practically everybody else in the media, does not understand Trump and does not understand Trump supporters and does not understand why Trump supporters support Trump and the kind of latitude and leeway they give Trump. He hasn't the slightest idea. This is really such a narrowly focused, short-sighted mindset to believe that they can help destroy Trump in the minds of Trump's supporters by pointing out that this wall is going to cost 3 times what Trump said it was going to cost. What about the cost of the national debt that doubled under Barack Obama? George, are those things that you just don't even have register in your brain? You worried about the costs of the wall when you served a president who blew the lid off spending, who had a stimulus bill of nearly $1 trillion that went to unions and didn't rebuild a single road or bridge, much less school? And you sit here and you hope to badger some Trump guy about the cost of the wall being 3 times what Trump said it was going to be? Then the answer comes back, hey, George, have you ever done a story on the cost of amnesty? Hey, George, you and the media ever figure what's going to cost this country to grant amnesty to 11 or 15 million people? You ever done a story? And Stephanopoulos didn't address it, wasn't what he was expected, so he went on. Okay, this. President Trump, again this week, suggested in a meeting with senators that thousands of illegal voters were bussed from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, and that's what caused his defeat in the state of New Hampshire, also the defeat of Senator Kelly Ayotte. Do you have evidence, Mr. Miller?
I've actually, having worked before on a campaign in New Hampshire, I can tell you that this issue of busing voters into New Hampshire is widely known by anyone who's worked in New Hampshire politics. It's very real. It's very serious. Voter fraud is a serious problem in this country. You have millions of people who are registered in 2 states or who are dead who are registered to vote, and you have 14% of non-citizens, according to academic research, at a minimum, are registered to vote, which is an astonishing statistic.
You can't hold on a second. You just claimed again that there was illegal voting in New Hampshire. Do you have any evidence to back that up?
George, go to New Hampshire, talk to anybody who's worked in politics there for a long time. Everybody's aware of the problem in New Hampshire.
Now, it's not just New Hampshire. We just had a case in Texas where an illegal alien woman was found guilty by a jury voting illegally, and she entrapped herself because she tried to register when she moved, and she admitted that she wasn't a citizen. She was caught. She was convicted as much for lying as much for anything. There is voter fraud. We know that dead people in Chicago vote, and this is Miller's whole point. Of course there's voter fraud. But the news media thinks that this is something they can nail Trump with as a lying skunk, because they think every time they ask this question, if Trump can't produce the fact that 3 million illegal aliens voted, that means Trump is lying. And that means they can nail Trump. And what they're demonstrating again is that they haven't the slightest idea why Trump supporters support him and voted for him. This is a great example of what I have been attempting to show. The drive-bys are stuck in a mode of operation that's decades old in the establishment playbook about how to destroy Republicans. And they have not modernized it and updated it to deal with Trump. I don't think there is anybody in media who better understands Trump supporters, who they are, and why they support Trump than I am. I really don't. I don't think there's anybody out there in media that has a better understanding and a bigger hold on just who Trump supporters are, why they support him, and why the media cannot separate them from Trump. The media doesn't understand it. They think they can with questions to Stephen Miller like this. Because Stephanopoulos just goes, okay, well, let the record show you provided no evidence of voter fraud in New Hampshire. Let the record show that you cannot provide evidence for one faulty, fraudulent vote. Miller said, well, you talk to Chris Kobach, the Attorney General in Kansas. I mean, they've been doing some great work on voter fraud. So CNN dutifully went and got him on the air today, talk about voter fraud, talked about it in the state of Kansas and so forth. But see, here's the thing. They want to sit there and deny that there's any voter fraud. They don't understand that is the crazy position. They think Trump's crazy. They think, by extension, Miller's crazy. They think that they're exposing crazy, lying SOBs here when they kept saying, you can't provide any evidence. Let the record show you haven't provided any evidence of any fraudulent voting in New Hampshire. So Stephanopoulos thinks he wins the day. Stephanopoulos does not realize that practically every Trump supporter watching, if there are any, that's another thing. Trump supporters don't watch this drivel much anymore. But those who do, and those who are watching, know exactly what Miller's talking about, and they support and applaud him saying what he said. We know not only do they bust voters in New Hampshire, they bust voters in for the Hawkeye. That's how Obama won the Iowa caucuses in 2000. They busted a bunch of people in there. Hillary tried to do the same thing this time around. We know the dead vote in Chicago. They laugh about it. They brag about it. We know multiple registration rolls. We know all kinds of things. We have a survey out today. 4 out of 5 Americans support voter ID. Why? Because they know there's vote fraud going on. And here's Stephanopoulos and ABC and the rest of the media trying to deny that there is any voter fraud because Trump and Miller don't produce actual evidence. And they think they're winning the day. They have no idea how they're appearing. They have no idea how all this just cements Trump's supporters even more firmly.